Boom, chicka pow, guys, and welcome back to our channel. As always, I'm Daniel.
I'm Angela.
And we are Sushi for frickin' 2. Remember it and write it down. Coming back live to you guys with our next episode of Q&A Tuesday right after this. And we're back just like that. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Q&A Tuesday, episode 4. That's right, episode 4 of Q&A Tuesday, 4 weeks in a row. This particular episode is going to be special. Why? If you haven't told or haven't read in the title, this particular episode is going to be covering long distance advice. And before we actually go into those questions, I just wanted to share a little bit of something about us. We actually did long distance for 1 year. It wasn't, in New Zealand versus Miami. It was between Miami and Orlando, still a few hundred miles away, a few hours away. But we actually brewed up our own type of secret sauce that really made us last. Because before I went to school in Orlando, we were really terrified. We were just like, can we do this? Even though it's only a few hours, so many people have shared and told us that it's not going to work and we need to find replacements and everything else in between. But we're here to tell you that it does work. And hopefully after we cover all of our questions today and give you guys the answers to the question that you guys may be having, within yourselves or people around you asking, hopefully you guys will get the gist that long distance is possible and it's actually I don't want to say it's very fun, but you can make it fun. You can make it into its own entity or being, if I may. So with that being said, for episode 4 of Q&A Tuesday, Angela, lay down the law. Give us the question that we're going to be answering today.
Okay. The first question is, what would be your tip on how to communicate when in a long distance relationship?
You want to tackle it first?
Sure. You don't want to go first?
No, go ahead.
A tip on how to communicate when in a long distance relationship. I think it would be to talk about, when you do talk, you don't have to, because you're both living separate lives and you're busy, the other person's busy, depending on if, you have school or work or whatever it could be. One thing that I found that worked for me and what really made me feel comfortable was talking about the smallest little things, no matter how stupid. I don't really like the idea of let's say we don't talk for a few hours, or we don't talk all day, we talk about the big events or whatever. For me, no matter how small, I don't even know how to explain it well, but no matter how small, I feel those things are important because it makes you feel like the person's right next to you. You can just say something so insignificant. It doesn't have to be this crazy life-changing event that happened to you with a cool backstory to it every single day. I feel the goal to communication in a long-distance relationship is to keep it as normal as possible, as if the person is still within a few miles from you. Does that make sense?
Right. So what Angela's trying to say is you don't need to specifically wait to contact the other person when something big happens. So, for example, if you just bought a new car, that shouldn't be the first text you're sending back to your loved one. It could be something as simple as, this sandwich turned out amazing when I tried this little new technique out, or I'm not feeling good today, or this exam coming up and I'm really not ready for it. It's basically anything and everything. Just to give you guys a little bit of a tip on what we did on top of the little things and the big things. We really incorporated certain techniques into our long distance, and what I mean by techniques, patent pending, is we actually did weekly FaceTimes, which really helped with the distance. It brought you face-to-face, FaceTime, it's in the name. We did that once or twice a week because she was working over 40 hours a week. I had school, which seems like 90 hours a week somehow. And I know, even to this day, I still remember Friday nights, we would FaceTime. I'd have a massive meal in front of me, just the most unhealthiest garbage you can find. And we're just sitting there and we're watching, at the time we were watching, what was that show with the 13 of them? Or the
Umbrella Academy.
we were watching Umbrella Academy and all these other shows on Netflix, which actually another thing is you can actually watch Netflix together using a Chrome extension called Netflix Party. We'll have that link down below, but that's something that really helped us in terms of like syncing our Netflix. So, basically we were watching at the same time.
Yeah, and there's also like a chat on the side too.
Right. So, instead I can just mute myself on FaceTime so she can at least see that I'm still there. But I could type away on the keyboard and, because also I had my speakers out. So instead of her hearing feedback through my speakers, me munching on the fries and the crispy tenders and the burgers, it's like the grease just going down my arms. They also had a chatting feature, which was so much fun. Like, we're just watching it again in real time together. If she pauses it, it's paused on my end. And, we're just like, oh, remember that actor from this? Oh, this is so stupid. Or, oh my God, that was amazing. I didn't even see that coming. So it really added that extra layer. And of course, once the episode's done, we're done eating. Because, we treated it as like a date night. We would just like lay there like for a few hours. Like sometimes our FaceTimes were like 3 to 5 hours. So you're kind of just catching up on everything, making it really intimate, very personal. And if you guys really need a technique, that one right there with Netflix Party, meaning FaceTime, is something that you really need to incorporate because it really helped us out.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I definitely agree. So that's your tip on communicating when in a long distance relationship, is like having that one thing a week to like look forward to.
So again, let's kind of sum everything up, talk about everything. And if you guys need other outlets of communication, not just texting, remember there's always FaceTime, so to make you guys face to face. And to even make it more intimate, if you guys want to watch the same shows together, have dinner together at the same time while watching those shows, Netflix Party is going to be your best bet.
Okay, are you ready for question 2?
Ready.
What are some fun ways that you kept the spark alive during your long distance relationship?
I can...
You can go first.
I'll go first.
Well, our answer's the same, I think, for this one.
Well, let's see.
Obviously.
All right, so a lot of the things that we're talking about today could actually be found on our blog. So if you guys could go check out Sushi For 2, spelled out TWO.com. A lot of our long distance tips are already there. But if you want to see our wonderful faces and us talking into this abnormally large microphone, you came to the right place. So when it comes to keeping the spark alive, and I kind of already mentioned it, I came up with an idea that we should work on a project together at the same time. You may be asking, Daniel, what do you mean a project? You guys are so many 100 miles away. What could it possibly be? Did you guys meet every weekend to build these things? No, absolutely not. What we did was we started a blog, and eventually that led to a YouTube channel. So I came up with the idea, listen, we love to write. I always wanted to be a blogger. I always wanted to make content for everybody in the world. So just you know what? You have so much to say. You love writing about makeup. She loves reviewing makeup. We just haven't started that yet, but it's going to come to a screen near you one day. But I don't know, it just, that sense of a project, it was basically our baby, because every week, I was too busy trying to update the website. I was writing posts, she was writing posts. We would talk together all the time, oh, when should I post this? What should I talk about? Is this good? Is this bad? Can you fix it? Can you put the links in there? Can you do the affiliate linking and everything like that? It just became something so, the actual blog didn't blow up. I don't want to say that we're these revolutionizing bloggers that just know how to do everything on the interwebs. But it was just a lot of fun for the both of us because we saw our blog grow in small increments, but it was something that we worked on together, something that we really put in effort from both sides, So
sure.
When it came to, something that kept the spark alive is we wanted something that would really keep us engaged every day. And that answer was the blog. Because again, I'm repeating myself a lot, but we did have to put in a lot of effort together simultaneously into it to make it work the way it did.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that was going to be my answer. I mean, for this one, I don't think we have different answers. I think working on something together gives you, even though like sometimes you might not have things to talk about because you do talk every day, like you do text every day, you'll always have something to talk about because you're working on something together. And it's really fun because you can just work on it together. Like I can write a post and I can say, can you proofread it? What do you think needs to be fixed? And it's like in real time. Like I think that helped the time also pass by faster because we were like on a schedule for posting. So for me, it also helped. Like it definitely did have like help with speeding up time, I think.
So another thing that we did in terms of keeping it fun and keeping the spark alive, it kind of tags along with what Angela just said of killing time. The reason she said that is because we made it our sworn duty to see each other in person at least once a month. Mm-hmm. And when you have this blog post and you have your job and you have school, it really runs down the clock. And in no time, out of nowhere, she's buying bus tickets to come see me, or I'm, filling up the car with gas coming to see her, So that was another thing that I wanted to share. In terms of keeping the spark alive, we really recommend that you guys try to facilitate some sort of partnership of meeting each other in person at least once a month. Obviously, it's a little easier for us because it's Miami to Orlando, and some of you may be either in different countries, in different states, or, of much further distances. But of course, if you sit down with that person that you call your loved one, your partner in crime, of course you can figure it out. Obviously, money could be an issue, schedules could be an issue. But so maybe instead of once a month, it could be once every 2 or 3 months. But if you have the initiative to basically put in the time, the effort into planning when you guys can see each other, it makes a big difference. You want to add anything to that?
No, I agree because it gives you something to look forward to also. So it's really fun. Okay, the next question. Is it a red flag if you feel disconnected all of a sudden, and have you ever felt disconnected from one another?
So I just want to say one thing about being disconnected. If you guys aren't connected to our subscribe button, make sure to click that subscribe button down below and crush that notification bell. Crush it as hard as you possibly can. All right, we are giving you guys amazing content for free. For free. There's no ads or anything, guys. Come on. Hop on the Sushi For 2 Express. All right, back to the question, please.
But do you know your answer? We can answer this one together also. Is it a red flag if you've ever felt disconnected? And have you ever felt disconnected? I think that it's not a red flag. It's normal. Maybe you've never felt disconnected from me.
It's a little different between the two of us. For example, Angela always felt disconnected.
No, I didn't always feel disconnected. That's not true. It's really hard. Like, I'm not going to say that it's easy, honestly, because for me, it was, like, really hard in the first few months, like, totally honest. The hardest part is that sometimes like your schedules don't really align. Like I'm busy, he's busy, or I want to talk, he doesn't want to talk, or like I want to talk, he wants to sleep. He wants to sleep, I don't want to sleep. Like sometimes the schedules don't add up, and then it could just be pure coincidence, but like when your schedules don't align day after day after day, you might not think anything of it, but I personally did, and I was just like, I feel weird because it's hard going from a relationship where you're in person, you see each other like every day, to a relationship where you don't see each other at all and you're just looking at a phone. Like it's two completely different things. So for me, when our schedules didn't align for over like a day, like it would be like 2 days, 3 days, like sometimes it'd be like 4 or 5 days, like I would just feel so like we're still fine, but it was just so chaotic and like we weren't talking as much. So yes, I've definitely felt disconnected, but it had nothing to do with like my relationship being disconnected. I just felt like our schedules weren't aligning, and what we did to fix it, we didn't really do anything. I would immediately tell him like, okay, I feel weird. Like, what's the problem? How do we fix it?
Yeah, be open with each other.
Sure.
That's really important.
And I would also, the fact that like knowing that we had that day on Fridays or whenever we had that Thursdays or whenever to FaceTime, I know that every issue, no matter how stupid it was, like if I did feel disconnected, when we did FaceTime, like everything finally like, just like disappeared and we were fine. And then after the FaceTime, it was like a time to like reset, and then everything went back to normal the next day. Just sometimes when like both of our lives were so crazy, you can't help but not feel disconnected. Personally, I don't know, you've never felt disconnected.
So I kind of already alluded to this. I didn't feel disconnected. I felt that everything was okay. But to really answer the question, feeling disconnected, it's bound to happen. It doesn't mean something's wrong, though. Because like Angela was saying, sometimes the schedules just don't align. One great example that we had between each other of being disconnected was every time I had an exam. For my exams, at least the 2 or 3 days before it, I was AWOL. I was MIA. I was just not on the map because I'm just in my room constantly reading huge textbooks and huge amounts of words and paperwork and everything in between. I just didn't have a second to pick up that phone because I didn't want to feel distracted, and I just felt like I would have nothing to add to the conversation because to be honest, locked in my room, and at the time I was in a small little dormitory, I guess you can call it, and my room's a little cubicle, no bigger than probably your bathroom that you guys have at your home. So I'm literally locked in that all day, reading countless amounts of, medical terminology and all these different diseases and drug states, and it's just the list is endless. And when I'm really focusing on that all day, and you really feel like you're in a prison, you have nothing to share. So I kind of want to connect this question to the first question that we answered, and the biggest problem that we had in the beginning is that I sometimes didn't think the small things were worth mentioning. And the way we fixed the one in terms of the feeling disconnected was that Angela started telling me, like, listen, you can share everything with me, from the little things to the big things. And throughout the months in that gap of our long distance relationship, I started adding those little things, and that really fixed that problem for us.
Well, because I felt like he actually did want to talk to me, because it's like, even if no matter how busy you get and no matter how many things you have going on in your life, like even if he was in person with me, he would have something to say. He'd see me and he'd be like, oh, I'm so stressed out, blah, blah, blah. But because we were apart and he was busy, he didn't feel, that like it was interesting enough to share something. And that's what kind of threw me off, because like I mentioned, my first tip was no matter how small, you should always try to communicate, right? Because that makes it feel normal. And for me, like I would always feel something was out of whack. Like even though per se nothing was wrong, it just didn't feel like the same to me. So,
which kind of goes to a one recurring topic that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. You really need to be honest with each other. And I'm sure you guys are going to hear that in every blog post and every, different long distance advice video. But we really can't stress the importance of that. If Angela didn't share with me that she's feeling disconnected from me based on like my texting patterns or any other criteria that it could be, I would have never known. And who knows, I could have maybe pushed her away because of that. And the last thing you want to do is push anyone away when you're already far away.
Yeah. And one tip that I have also is, if somebody is telling you I'm bothered by this, or this is something I'm uncomfortable with, one thing, it's very important. It's always important, let's say when you're in a relationship, but I feel like it's more important when you're far apart from one another. Even if you don't think it's an issue and you don't understand it, or to you it seems like stupid, or you could be like, I feel like I'm doing everything right, like what could be wrong? If someone is coming to you, like in a long distance relationship, it really does take work. All relationships take work, but in a long distance relationship, you're kind of like committed to putting extra work to make it all work out. And if one person is coming to you and saying like, look, this feels weird to me, or like I'm not comfortable, instead of just thinking, I think everything is fine, or this is how it should be, for sure my tip is you have to be receptive, no matter how small their criticism is, because when someone's away from you, and if you shut down, they're like feeling like you're like, oh yeah, this is stupid. It's harder because of the distance, and things can get like misunderstood. So if somebody comes to you with an issue, or like complaint or just something that they want to get off their chest, always be receptive. Even if you think it's stupid, just be like, I'm here to listen, no matter how dumb it could be to you. But that's really important, for sure.
No, that's definitely really important. Just remember, take in everything that we just said for this answer, for this question, and just remember it's okay to have these feelings, but what makes it not okay is when you don't share it and you don't work on it together. And I think with that, we're going to close out that question.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
the stamp of Sushi for Two approval.
The next one. What is the hardest part about long distance and how do you cope with it? I think there's two hard parts.
The floor is yours.
One hard part is that the person is far away from you. That's like the hardest part ever. I would want to I had like an event at work or something and I wanted to take him, or like I had a really bad day at work and I just wanted to sit down and watch a movie with him. So the distance never gets easier. That's like the hardest thing. So how do I cope with it? I just called him sometimes, or I would just be like, I just really want to talk to you tonight, even though it wasn't like a scheduled day. What's really important is also not going into just a full routine. Once a week we talk on the phone. It's if you miss the person, you pick up the phone to talk to them. Right. That's how I coped with it. But one other hard part, it could also be kind of like a benefit, but one hard part for me was that if you do have a disagreement or an argument, and you are far apart from one another, it's so easy just to hang up the phone, Because when you're in person, you can just give each other a hug and move on, or just not even a hug, fight it out, and then it'll go away in 5 minutes. But when you're apart from one another, especially if you're texting all day instead of talking face to face, things can get really misconstrued or misunderstood. And instead of just dealing with it or fighting or figuring it out, you can just simply hang up the phone. And that's so hard for me because it's much harder to fix something when you're far apart. And how do I cope with that? We talked about it, and I was just if we have an issue, let's talk about it. And no matter how mad or whatever we are, don't hang up the phone. So I guess that worked out because we didn't do that after a while.
Yeah, so I guess to answer that question on my end, Angela stole it right out of my mouth. The one hardest
part
one hardest part of long distance is the arguments. Not to say that we had a lot. I don't want to come off as that.
But even if we did, they were not even major. They were just
they're just
stupid.
Little things and misconceptions and just misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And that could happen when you're in a long distance relationship because, if we're texting all day and I either don't write the right word or maybe I didn't use the, an emoji where I normally do, and you could, start thinking, is something going on? Is the spark still there?
That was my biggest thing. That was the hardest. Actually, forget everything I just said. The hardest thing for me was not worrying, but being is everything still the same? That was the hardest part for me.
Right. So, kind of talking about that, but it just lost of words right now.
Sorry, I feel did I throw you off?
Yeah.
No, but you were saying if there's an emoji or something that's off, it's we argued about it.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm back on track, everybody.
Got you.
If you guys
I interrupted, but
if you guys like that little blunder, please remember to subscribe down below and hit the notification bell. But yeah, arguments. They're bound to happen, especially at long distances. And one of the examples was that I wasn't texting the right way, or just little things like that, and that could happen. And sometimes that little Fishy Doodle, little thing oh, why didn't you send the heart after that one, and then you left me for 3 hours, even though maybe when I sent that message I could have been driving and I had to go straight into class, and my classes, believe it or not, are 3 or 4 hours long, and sometimes even back to back, so I'm just on campus all day, and that little misconception could be what's your deal, what's going on, what's the problem? And that little, like I said, Fishy Doodle could become something big. And when we're on the phone, just I'm trying to explain my end of it to her, and she's trying to explain her end to me. And sometimes over the phone or over text, you can't really solve these problems,
No,
And
sure.
I'll be honest, sometimes I would get very heated and hang up, and then she would get so upset. And, this problem that, number one, probably would have never happened if we were together, or closer in terms of distance, or, this little problem that could have easily been avoided, like, through, like, a 2-second conversation person to person. It blew up to something so big. And because of that, it's just, it lasts sometimes days instead of something being only a few minutes or not even happening at all. And that was the biggest problem, because sometimes our arguments did extend toward, further than our typical arguments would have. Sometimes, one argument probably scaled for a day and a half or 2 days until we finally reached an agreement of what happened. And most of the time, like I said, it's not because we had arguments because I hated her and she hated me, and she was saying these rude things to me and I was just like throwing stones back. It wasn't anything like that. It literally little misconceptions that could happen when you're at such a distance apart. And that right there is kind of important when just keep that in the back of your mind, because remember, you're doing long distance so far apart that you really want to be as specific as possible and as open as possible to not give the opportunity to the other person to think there's something wrong. That, I guess, hopefully what I just said made sense. If not, you may have to replay it a few times, but the answer is definitely within what I just said.
No, it made sense.
All right, perfect.
And then the last question: what's been one benefit of being in a long-distance relationship / any words of advice for couples hesitant about it? So what's been one good thing about it?
I'll go first for the benefit.
Yeah.
So one benefit of the relationship or long-distance relationships, I would say, especially if they last, is that they really develop the relationship as a whole. That when both of you are put in a position of basically like a test. It's a test of love, or it's a test of feelings, it's a test of lust, whatever you want to use to describe your particular relationship. But you're put through a test to see if you guys can make it through this, hump or this negative slope, again, whatever you want to call it, just to see if you guys could make it. And, for the two of us, we made it. We're happier than ever. We're just so stunned and stoked that we're together again. But during that 1 year, even though we were physically apart, I felt that we learned a lot about each other during that time. And even though that may not make sense right now, especially if you guys haven't done long distance yet, you will understand it once you start going months into it. Because again, you're starting to learn how a person acts, how different they are when they're not next to you. And you're trying to see, how committed are they, or how much are they willing to sacrifice to make sure that this long distance relationship is still their number one priority. It's things like that I would say there is a benefit to long distance. Not to say that if you're having relationship issues that you guys should move apart to see if you guys are going to be okay.
You never know.
Maybe you could put yourselves under a stress test willingly. But if you had to, which in our case I had to go, it really solidified our relationship, and that would be my answer to what is one of the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm. My answer is, it's close to yours, but I feel like when you decide to be in a long-distance relationship and you are seeing that it's working, and throughout the relationship as a whole, I feel like it kind of makes you appreciate the person you're with a little bit more, because you just have a different feeling towards the person, because it's so easy, like when you're apart at the end of the day, just to be like, this is hard. Like, I can't even tell you how many times, like, people, when we were first thinking about it, I was Googling, like, should we do it? Because we really wanted to stay together, but we were just, like, kind of hesitant because, like, I've never heard anything good about it before. Right. But it gives you a different appreciation for the person, because it takes a lot for someone to be so far from you and to, like, still make sure that everything's okay. And it kind of teaches you to, like, value the person, because you're just, like, it first of all teaches you to appreciate them more, because you appreciate your time spent together more. When you're together once a month, you're not going to spend your once a month arguing, whatever. You're just going to be like, wow, this is the person I've been waiting a month to see. And you have a different kind of appreciation for the person. You have a different level of fun when you're with the person. And then also with the distance, you have a different appreciation through terms of like communication, because it's like, I'm really committed to making it work, and like I loved you before, but like this is how committed I am, that like I love you more now, even though you're apart. So I feel like one of the benefits is that if you decide to do it, it could really bring you closer, because you really have to listen to one another, and it kind of makes you bonded in a different way, because you have like that connection that no one else could have, like you're meeting people wherever you are, like at work, at school, but it's like you still have that like special person you have a connection with, and like you're working towards something that's far away from you. So I think it's definitely very special, and it makes you appreciate the person you're with more.
I think the real takeaway of this question is that long distance isn't inherently bad. There are some positives to it. Again, I'm not promoting the fact that you should hop on a train wherever you land and you're gonna start testing your relationship from there. Definitely not saying that. But even when we were discussing in our early phases before we moved out, family, friends, even people who we didn't know started putting their nose into the situation, saying it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna work out. But, little did they know, the year flew by. We not even lived together. Again, happier than ever, planning our lives going forward, hitting up that blog that we worked on together during that year, pushing YouTube going forward. It was a crazy experience. We learned a lot about each other. And again, like there was positivity out of it. I really want that to be one of the takeaways that you guys take from this video, that it's possible, it's not all bad, and as long as you put in the effort and show that the other person matters, it will. Sushi for two guaranteed. It will work.
Wow, that was deep.
Like I almost shed a tear on that.
I almost shed a tear listening. That's so deep. That's really insightful advice. That's really nice. Yeah, I totally agree. I was really, really hesitant at first. Very, very hesitant. But if you put in the work, of course it will work. If you put in the work, it'll work. Like if you put in the effort.
That's a shirt coming to a store near you.
If you put in the effort just to make, the other person feel special, what can possibly go wrong? Just stay committed. And one word of advice, what I found is kind of like still live your life, but also kind of operate in the notion with always keeping the other person in the back of your head, because it's like you're apart from one another. And the easiest thing is just like pretend that person's not far.
Yeah, treat that person is next to you even though their physical body isn't there.
Yeah, for sure.
Not talking into the wind, but
yeah, but like metaphorically
speaking,
just as if they're there. It doesn't really change anything, because he can be working, I can be working, we can still live together, but like we're still busy, so just pretend as though you're not even far from one another and operate in that notion. Like don't do things that you don't have to go crazy just because you're apart. Like still operate how you would, do what you do. And then if you think, oh, should I go out and do this? Like, would you do this if your partner was next to you? If you wouldn't, don't do it. It's not that hard. Just always keep that person in the back of your mind, and it'll all be very easy.
Yeah. That was the last question, right?
Yes, it was. I hope you guys got some insightful advice from this. And this is going to be a very long video, but we're very thorough.
Yeah, sorry for the length of the video, but we really wanted to convey all the information that worked for us to make your relationships work. And if you found this information helpful, please share this with your friends, your loved ones, through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. Because We just really want to spread the word and go against that negative connotation of what long distance is. So again, if you guys could, and if you guys really liked it, be sure to share it among your friends and anyone that you think would benefit from this information. Of course, I need to do a little plug in there. Hit that subscribe button, crush that notification bell. If you guys want to see more of our long distance content, comment down below. Let us know what questions you want us to specifically answer. And also go to our blog, sushifor2.com. What was it? sushifor2.com. It's crazy. It's crazy out here. Free content to you guys. Come on.
Yeah. Well, also, one more thing. We're not like the experts at long distance also. Like, not by no means are we like the love gurus. So if you have any advice also that worked for you during your long distance relationship, I would love to read about it, to hear about it, because it's very interesting for me. I still read about all these things even though like we're still living together. I think it's so interesting, so cool, because everyone is so different.
Yeah,
so let us know.
Yeah, so if you had your own techniques, also comment down below, share with us so we can share your voice and your reason with everyone else through our platform.
Yeah, and we can talk about it in one of our future videos
in the future videos, which means it's coming out next Tuesday. Remember that for Q&A Tuesday, everybody.
Yes.
Hope we answered your long distance advice questions. Again, if you want to see more, comment down below what you're specifically looking for, and if anything, we will see you guys next Tuesday for episode 5.
Episode 6.
No, be episode 5.
Oh, okay. Episode 5. Sorry.
Somebody knock some sense in there, everybody.
Sorry.
With that being said, guys, we are signing out. Thank you and have a great night.
Bye.